Thank you very much for joining us again to this episode of our series, Still in Touch. Today we're gonna have Sandy to talk about the presentation of the evaluation of the volleyball referee. And we'll see how much we're gonna stay up and see how much interesting it's gonna be. Sandy, the stage is yours, and then I'll start the presentation.
Okay. Again, it's an honor to be here, and I'm really grateful for having the opportunity to actually to speak on certain topics. A little bit nervous now that Tom Blue has arrived on the video link, because he knows as much as I do, if not a lot more than I do. So anyway, here we go. So if I appear a little nervous, that's the reason. Sorry, Tom. Anyway, in our previous conversations, we talked about how there is really no recipe for a perfect referee. That was really our last conversation. But there are skills. There's skills and qualities which, if we apply them or applied by the referee, will deliver fairness to all participants. And you'll get to a position where the referee is delivering a very fair and enjoyable presentation of the match, okay? And that's what we really got to when we talked about the good referee last time, because I gave a kind of quick summary of what I call benchmark things that the good referee should be able to do. And in fact, it's the kind of thing that all aspiring referees or budding referees, learner referees should be aiming towards. So that was the last thing that we had last time, and the takeaways from that were probably that you look at the best and you apply what you see from the best people, and be fair and learn all you can, and so on. Now, if we go a little bit further than that, one of the things that we realize that as people who develop referees, one of the things that we do is we teach. We teach people how to referee, but we also, during that teaching process, we evaluate how well they have done. And that's really important, that we know the two aspects. We can deliver the information, but how do you know that that information has actually been acquired? How do we know that the referee has absorbed that information? How do we know that that referee can then put it back out again when they perform in a match situation? So really that's that's where we are. Now, evaluation, okay? From the day we're born, from the first time we, as children, we paint a yellow blob on a piece of paper with spikes coming out of it. And your dad says, my son, the doctor. And you think, well, where did that come from? And he comes back and says, look, he's painted a coronavirus already. And so that's the sort of thing that happens from day one, that we have expectations placed upon us by others, and we are evaluated all the time. It doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing from school. There's assessment, there's evaluation, and so on. We sit and we pass examinations, and that's part and parcel of our day-to-day existence. When you're in an occupation, your boss looks at you and thinks, does this person really deserve to be in my company? Do they do a good job, and so on? And if the person falls a little bit short of that, then there's obviously some kind of training process that needs to take place. Now, when we are assessed, a lot of what we're doing, what I just described, is what we call formative assessment. It's assessment that leads you to another stage. It basically shows some of the little mistakes that you're making and tries to correct them, or tries to point you in the direction that we are going in. And if we put that in a referee context, then referees are, or should be, given advice from people about how they should perform. Referee exams, they are more of a cut and dried, black and white thing. That they are summative. They are a snapshot of your knowledge, but they don't really tell you how well you can referee. And it's only when you get in a referee's chair that you can actually really show how good you are. I mean, I know referees who have done very poorly at examinations, but have been fantastic on the referee's chair. So it's important that we differentiate from the person who has studied the rules inside out and knows them fabulously well from the referee who's actually a real referee and can actually demonstrate, but is not all that good at examination. So really, it's what happens in the referee's chair that's important. So when we do this, then we could perhaps even call this little talk that we're doing just now the art of reflection, because referees really need to think about what they're doing. They need to reflect upon the various mechanisms that they have employed, the decisions that they've made, and reflection is the key to moving forward with those sort of things. And it allows us to improve ourselves step by step by step, and so on. We reflect, we anticipate, and so on. So if we can go to the next slide, then it says the one which says how we are judged. Let's pop on a little bit more. I've done some of those. Right. So we're judged by players. We're judged by coaches, spectators, media, according to how well we handle the key aspects of a volleyball match. Before the match, we should be doing a lot of reflection of, well, what's going to happen if this occurs? What's going to happen if that occurs? How am I going to handle this situation? So you reflect before the match. And that's part of your preparation. It's part of your pre-match rituals of discussing with your colleague how you are going to do this match, and how you're going to handle this very special person that maybe is a difficult coach or a difficult player, and so on. So that's before the match. During the match, obviously, you are not really in a good position to reflect, but you do reflect. But importantly, you don't dwell on any mistakes that you make. So I think that's critical, that you've done your decision, you move on. So don't let it affect the rest of your match. Okay. After the match, again, it's part of your pre-match, your post-match rituals, that you sit down with your colleagues and you discuss how the match went. This occurred, that occurred. How did it go? Could we have done it better? And if you have a very nice referee supervisor or referee coach, then that person is obviously going to be questioning you on that and pulling out or teasing out how the match actually went, and what are your real feelings about the match, whether any things that you could have done better. Now, with regard to that, let me just mention a situation occurred. We had a match where we had the tablet pinged just at the same moment that the referee blew the whistle for service, and obviously the scorer hadn't pressed the start rally button. Okay, so we had some confusion there, and these are the sort of situations that occur. What happened was that the referee allowed the service to go, and the opponent team caught the ball. Okay. What do you do? So that's the kind of thing that you can discuss. Should the referee have call a replay? Should the referee have fallen off the referee's chair? Should the referee have smiled and said, no, not just a mistake? Or what do you do? So those are the kind of things that in a post-match sequence you can actually discuss. You can think about how could we do this, and what were the reactions of the players? You take that into account. The players reacted in a bad way, a good way. The players accepted or not accepted. These are the sort of things that you can tease out in a post-match situation. So that's you self-evaluating. And at the same moment, the referee coach, if they are there, will also be putting an input to that. And if you have a challenge referee, hopefully the challenge referee will also input to that too. So it's important that we do this to yourself, okay? a key or very, very powerful tool is self-evaluation. So if we can judge ourselves more harshly than others judges, then there's a chance that we move forward. And that's really an important thing for referees. So don't try and deny that something bad happened. Don't try and deny that you made a mistake. Accept that you made a mistake and move on. Right. Okay. So these are the things that you should be asking yourself. What I would say is be honest with those things. Be honest about anything that occurred that you could have done differently, and it's kind of a it's kind of a stress test, if you like, that you actually what's the evidence that I could have done it better. So it's a learning process. Now, if we move to the next slide, then from a spectator's point of view, we can. Oh, no, something jumped.
Sorry.
Right, okay, number 5, please.
We
Okay, so number 5 then we have, that's it, we have 3 key points. Okay, the first one is on ball handling. I mentioned last time that I spoke about the difference between a manufactured referee and a natural referee. And in the natural referee, natural referee has probably played before, has certainly refereed at a fairly high level, and has understood what is meant by the criteria for ball touch, ball handling. That person would understand that certain things are allowed, certain things should be allowed, in fact, to allow the play to continue. And it's important that you know those things in order to gain the player's respect, and not just arbitrarily whistle and stop the play, and then nobody understands what it was for. So you call a handling decision, and you're the only one in the whole auditorium that actually saw a mistake. So be careful about that, and be consistent. The most important thing from a player's point of view is that the referee is consistent. Consistent from beginning to end, but also from match to match, so that they understand what they are expected to do. It's when players are unsure of what is expected of them that they can cause problems. So please just think to yourself, what's the criteria? What's my level? Keep my level constant. Allow the play to continue if possible, and if, for example, if players are in a very bad position but still manage to play a reasonably good ball, we surrender a little bit of that control in order to give more control to the actual play. A lot of people think, in fact, that by surrendering that little aspect, they have lost control. They haven't. They've actually made a decision, a conscious decision, to actually allow that play to entertain the public. Okay, so that's important. We appreciate that. In terms of the part B, which is the next line down, if we can go, okay, we've got interactions between the various people on the court. Referees that are very brusque, brittle, aggressive, they don't do terribly well in international competitions. We need to deal with people in a very respectful way. I talked last time about people skills, and the very good referees will see that they interact with people in a way that does not cause conflict. Now, they'll make tough decisions, don't get me wrong, they will make tough decisions, but they'll do it in a way that actually creates respect, creates trust, and so on. some people, some referees that we have seen, I'm sure, treat any questioning by a captain or a coach as a threat, and we shouldn't do that. We should interact with them in an atmosphere of mutual respect. Okay, and it can be a fairly strong conversation, but nevertheless, at the end of the day, we should not lose our temper or be angry. Okay, so and then part C, evaluating. I've already said it. Self-evaluation is critical, and that's the way that we as referees move forward. So let's move a little bit to and focus a little bit more on ball touch. We need to remember that we're in this major but it is the major thing that we need to understand. We're no longer just in a small sports hall with a few people. We are catering for thousands of people in a large venue with millions of people watching on TV, either live or recorded or on YouTube or whatever else, whatever kind of platform we've got. Often you see people with their cell phones on trains, on buses, or in cars, hopefully not driving at the same time. But these people are actually watching volleyball in their way. Okay, so that's the way that they observe it. So we must appreciate that they want to be entertained at all costs, and we don't actually always see any mistakes on TV. It's only when the TV will give us a close-up or a slow motion, and then we actually see a lot more than perhaps we want to see, and everything looks like a double contact, everything looks like a catch, and so on. But remember, next one down, Roy, remember that we are allowing the show to go. We're not surrendering control. We're making decisions consciously to actually allow the game to flow, okay? For many, many years, we had spectacularity. Then we had keep the ball flying. And now we're actually focusing on allowing the players to decide the results of the match by the actions of their play on the court. So when there's a ball touch in a grey area, for example, it's perhaps important for the referee just to give a little bit of extra leeway on that one, to make that conscious effort not to whistle. And it's a little bit like a conductor of an orchestra. If the orchestra is playing in front of an audience, the conductor would stop the recital, and if somebody the lead cello, for example, hit a wrong note or burst a string, okay, you keep it going and you pretend that everything is okay. You sell your decisions at all times, and you apply facial expressions that let everybody know that you've done it correctly and that you knew exactly what you were doing all along. So those are the sort of things that we do. Okay, next one, consistency. So we've mentioned consistency. This is the one that decides your credibility. Along with the ball handling, consistency is the one that if you are on a roller coaster of performance, the players have no idea what you're doing. They get angry and they get annoyed and they express that in the only way they know how. But our main goal as a referee is, and those are the key components. Okay. So the background is that we're going in the direction of what it is the referee should do. Okay, now let's move a little bit further and we'll look at the personality. So we're decisive, but we're not confrontational. We're not dictators as referees. We shouldn't be. I know some referees in the past have been like that because that's the way they were expected to behave, but we're not expected to behave like that anymore. And personality of the referees must assist at the moment of those controlling or disciplinary aspects. So as I said, we're not being challenged by a team member all the time, but if we do, we need to control it. But we need to not react badly. We need to react professionally, and then we move on with authority, but we're not authoritarian. We're not dictators. Okay, so that's important. So all of those aspects are things that people look at of us as referees when we're on the chair. The spectators see all these things, the media see all these things, the coaches and the players see all these things, and the hierarchy in FIVB probably see all these things too. And they're the ones who say, yeah, he's a good referee or not a good referee. Referees that are never noticed are the best. Okay. So moving on. Okay, I said this to you before, and it's worthwhile reiterating again. We need to look at ourselves because we can be the cause of a player getting a yellow card or a red card because we made the mistake. It's not always like that, of course, but very often we'll find that we made a decision and you think afterwards, oh, I wish I hadn't made that decision. And the players tell you that you shouldn't have made that decision. And so automatically you reach for the card and you give them a yellow card and say, no, you shouldn't be saying that to me, which is fair enough. But nevertheless, it was our fault in the first place. So if you are, however, going to give some kind of discipline, then give yourself room for maneuver. Now, the current discipline rules were written in a lunchtime in Lausanne. And what happened was that we were being informed that the players were not really respecting the current rules of discipline. At that particular time, we had moved a bit like football, soccer, to a yellow card was a point and a red card was an expulsion. And it really was not a good time because we were told, whether it was true or not, but we were told that the referees really didn't want to show any cards because it was really quite severe. You know, you went immediately to oh wow. And if you did that at set point or match point, that could be quite decisive. So referees really, we were told, did not want to give out cards. So that lunchtime, I sat in Lausanne and I rewrote the thing, and we have what we have now. Now, the reason why it's written the way it is to give flexibility to the referee. It may not seem like that at first, but it is. You're allowed to have your verbal warnings and your first level warning, second level warning, and so on. To give flexibility, to give the referee's personality a chance to operate. And okay, there are occasional anomalies within that system, but nevertheless, it seems to work a whole lot better than it did before. That we do have cards, but not very many. And that's good. And certainly at the international level, we don't see too many yellow cards, except when somebody is really outlandish in their behavior. So that's important to know. So going next slide. So we then think about mutual respect. We treat the coaches and the players respectfully. We're gentle, but we're not submissive. Critical that we're not submissive. And never appear submissive to a coach. They'll probably eat your arm off in the middle of the match if you do that. I do remember one instance where a coach was bit by bit getting further and further into dangerous situations, and a yellow card earlier would perhaps have solved the problem, but it became really quite difficult towards the end of the match, and by that time it was probably too late to give a yellow card anyway. The damage had been done. So we have to be careful what we're saying here. We're not submissive. We are still in control. We are still decisive. We won't tolerate any bad behavior. But in the nice soft times, when we use our people skills, we can get away with an awful lot more with a a respectful look. Then we come with a very aggressive look. So, and while I remember, I did remember Tom Blue's story last time when he was on about it's not your coach, it's not my coach, it's your coach. And I have used that many times in the past, and it's a great story. Okay. Now, next slide. So how do we evaluate and why do we evaluate? Okay, let's look. There are various strands to this. Obviously, we evaluate to improve. Okay, you get information from whoever it is, the coach, the mentor, the trainer, the supervisor, whatever, and it's to improve you. Okay, next. To create this individual consistency, that you are consistent in your approach, but also that you're consistent with the referees to perform in the same way, at the same time, the same level, and so on. Next one. Right, okay, I've just mentioned that one. And we have a common standard week upon week, that from the first week of the competition to the last week of the competition, that we are demonstrating the same things all the way through. And that's not easy to do. And events like what we're doing just now are actually really good for developing that consistency of approach, that we understand a little bit more of what we are expected to do, and together, hopefully, we're rising to the FIVB standards that they have set for many, many years. And so we all aspire to that. Next. Okay, refereeing is no different to any other walk of life, and we should welcome the opportunity to be evaluated by somebody and to improve our various techniques. Next. So what do we evaluate? Okay, we've mentioned some of it already. Okay, body language. We evaluate how well we are showing the various participants about our decisions. We show by our facial expressions, by where our eyes are looking, and so on. If we look panicky, then obviously it's a way for the players to attack us. Where did we look? Are we looking at the right place? Are we looking at the right time? Are you making decisions on ball in, ball out, and then checking with the line judge, or are you relying on the line judge to make that decision for you, and so on? How fast are your reactions? How fast do you whistle? When the ball hits the floor, do you look at the line judges first and then look at where the ball landed, and so on, and then do you whistle? So many things that are happening around about the court and about you are being evaluated. How you look, how you stand, how you gesture, where your eyes are focused, all this gives a clue to others about how you are performing. Next. Now, all of those things that I mentioned are really the benchmark of a good referee. Right? Now, if however, you don't have a supervisor, you don't have somebody to assist you, then what you can really do is to evaluate yourself. Now, I mentioned earlier that self-evaluation is what most of us probably have to do. In big competitions, we don't always have somebody who's actually at our elbow. Often I will say that your best friend is your worst critic. So maybe your best friend is your second referee, or your first referee if you're the second. Discuss and be honest. But anyway, let's look at your own performance if you have nobody to talk to. On the left, you've got the best aspects of your performance. On the right, you've got your worst aspects. Now, if we look at the opposite to relaxed at the right point in the match, let's see what it says. Okay, you're tense. So in the match, you're relaxed, or in the match, you're tense. Somewhere you're in between, probably. Okay, same with in control. Are you in control all the time? No. Sometimes you lack control. Where did you lack control? Worthwhile remembering, where did you lose control of that particular event? You know, the coach all of a sudden started to shout at you, had you lost control? What were you doing at the time? Why were you not on top of that situation? Were you decisive, or were you indecisive? In other words, did you hesitate? Why did you hesitate? What was wrong did you lose concentration at that point? Were you tough? Or were you easily influenced? You know, if the players protest some particular call and you change your mind, or you haven't made a decision, but the players who shouted loudest made you, or seemed to make you make that decision. I know that in beach, for instance, since Rui is there, I'll mention beach just now. When there's a ball mark protocol, for example, needing doing, it's better if the referee makes that decision before the players request one. And these are the sort of things that referees need to do in advance. They need to, think about it. What do I do in this situation? Okay, I'll go and do that. Okay, and that way you end up with the referee looking that they're in control. Was the referee in tune with the game? In other words, could they smell the way the game was going? I know that my colleague Nati Taram always used to talk about you should be able to smell the game, have a flavor of what the game is doing. And, if you are in tune, then you're in advance of the process. You're ahead of the game, as it were. Also, all these sort of things. You're in the zone. These are the kind of words that we use to describe, how you are doing in the match. Were you tactically aware, or were you poor in terms of awareness? I mentioned last time about the referee that did not understand the various permutations of illegal positioning when players were stacked on the left-hand side of the front of the court. So we need to be aware of all those things. Referee target the correct areas. Were you looking at the right place at the right time? Did you target the wrong areas? In other words, were you, for example, a second referee, were you focused on what happened on the court, or did you at a very inappropriate moment decide that one of the players in the warm-up zone had put a toe outside the warm-up area, and so on? Was the projected image that you were generating a positive one, or was your body language not particularly good? So these are the sort of things that we can, again, look at and think, not very comfortable today, and so on. So confident or not confident, projected body image, positive or not, okay? These are the things that referees at the top level are all on the left-hand side, okay? If you're a beginner referee, you're probably a little bit more to the right-hand side, but often we're in the middle. Now, what we can do if we evaluate ourselves in this kind of profile is generate an image of ourselves during the match. And if we look at that image at the end, we can see where we're deficient, we can see where we're lacking a little bit, and then over a period of time, if we do this for various matches, one after the other, day after day, week after week, etc., we can build a profile of ourselves, and then we can examine that profile in terms of where do we need to actually work, what kind of areas do we need to work on. This is our assessment. This is us assessing ourselves, and we can, if we do have a referee coach, and the referee coach is willing to give of his time or her time, then we can actually focus on those areas and try and work out strategies to try and improve those particular areas. Okay, again, similarly, we're going to add this to the previous profile. Was the whistle sharp or was it not? Okay. Were your interventions well timed or were they not? Okay. Did you spot the faults in time, or were you late with your whistle? When you were dealing with intervals and timeouts, etc., did you allow delay, or did you actually manage it correctly? Were you energetic, or were you lethargic? and when we say energetic, I don't mean you're jumping around like Jack in the Box. You're actually doing the right things at the right time, projecting an energetic image, but not jumping around. Okay, you're smooth. You have to be smooth, but you're still purposeful. Purposeful might be a better description. And then, were you alert to all the things that happen, or were you distracted by other things? Were there too many things happen that you were focused on the wrong areas at the wrong time? Okay, again, you can focus on these things yourself. If a person was observing that referee, okay, they would be influenced about all of those factors to decide whether or not you were having a good game or a bad game. Okay, next slide. Okay, again, more self-evaluation. Now, that first one is the one that I hate most of all. When I ask referees after matches, tell me about your match, and the first thing they always say is, we had good cooperation with my colleague. And I always say, well, you should have good cooperation with your colleague at this level. So please don't tell me that one. Tell me other things. And I always ask them to tell me a couple of good things and a thing to develop, so a thing to improve on. So two good things and a bad thing. Okay, and usually they're okay. They're very nervous about doing that. They're very humble about doing that. They don't like to demonstrate that they actually had a really good performance, but nevertheless, eventually it can be teased out of them that yes, they did a really good job, and this was a difficult situation they handled really well, and so on. And from a coaching point of view, it's actually nice when they do that. Okay, were they organized at the beginning? Were they organized in the middle? Were they organized at the end? Okay. Were they able, in fact, to link with the scorer when there was a difficult situation, when they missed a point, or when there was a positional fault that there was, or a rotational fault that was called by the scorer? Was there when there was a mistake in the e-score sheet and they had to correct it, and so on? So these are the things that they need to be aware of. Were they knowledgeable about those factors? Did they know how to get out of that difficult situation? And many times referees, while they know the international score sheet, they don't always know how to get out of the problem. And it's important to be aware of those small details. They're not scorers, but they should be able to do the scorer's job as well as the scorer, in the sense of knowing the theory of it, for sure. Were they in good optical position? In other words, did they get poorly positioned? Did they run away from the action? Did they see the action when the ball passed the antenna? So those are the things that I would describe as poorly positioned. Were they consistent with their manner? Were they consistent with their ball touch, and so on? Were they behind the action? Like I said before, it was being ahead of the game. Okay, were they ahead of the action? And so on. Okay, next one. Oh, right. So, all of the things that I've mentioned so far are really things that the referee really has to do themselves. Or if they do have a colleague, then they can work with them. They can discuss after the match, for sure, and before the match also. If they have video, if they have YouTube, if they have Zoom, if they can do lots of discussions, etc. The ways that we can communicate now are much better than they used to be. But if we have a referee coach, and from their perspective, we can actually take it a little bit further. We can take it to a new level. And in this process of evaluation, we need to think about, well, first of all, what is a referee coach? And if we can think of that, let me just focus a little second. Right, just moving my page over. Yes. Previously, a referee delegate would nominate and evaluate the referees as part of a referee subcommittee. The referee coach does that too, but is really charged with developing referee performance by creating the conditions where the referee is able to find his or her own solutions. So it's different from the mentor role. It's different from an instructor role. It's really about allowing the referee to find the skills themselves, or the solutions themselves. We could call it a solutions-based approach that we're following here. So he's more than an advisor, or she is more than an advisor, more than a mentor, because the mentor actually has a similar experience perhaps to the referee and can offer solutions. The advisor or the trainer or the instructor also does instructing, inputs information, but the coach does something totally different. A coach, while they support or they probe or they extract solutions, their real role is to question. It was quoted before that a referee coach unlocks the person's potential. The potential to, and in order to do that, maximizes their performance. So unlocks the potential to maximize performance. And it's about helping to learn and helping the person find the solutions themselves rather than teaching. It's not direct teaching, but it's asking questions. It's described as non-directive. In other words, it's non-judgmental as well. And really it's, well, what do you want to do? It's not where was there a fault, what was the problem, but it's, okay, let's find a solution to that. If that's an area that you're concerned with, let's find a solution to that. So it can be done either as a group, for example, at the end of the match, sitting around with the referee coach and discussing is a good enough way. But it can also be done on a one-to-one basis. But anyway, let's look at the situation in the at the end of a match. Okay, we need to listen. A coach has to be as good a listener as a talker. I'm sure most of us now are going down the route of emphasizing good points. You know, I said already that we get the referees to say two good things and a bad point. But the referee coach should be doing similar things. Find good things to say. You know, if you think about it, if there are, you know, so many hundred decisions they do in a match, and of that, perhaps only 2 or 3 were questioned, that percentage success rate is fantastic. And similarly, if there was, let's say, 7 challenges in a match, and the referee lost 5 of those 7, that doesn't make the referee a bad referee. In fact, those seven challenges were 7 times in the match, for example, out of those hundreds and hundreds of decisions that the referee made. Okay, every time the ball is touched by a player, it's a decision that the referee has to make. So think of all those hundreds, maybe even thousands of decisions the referee made correctly, and of that, only a few were actually questioned. Okay, and nowadays, because of the nature of the challenge, mostly that challenge is done in a very calm manner, and people are obviously waiting expectantly for the result of the challenge to go on the screen. But it does tend to defuse a lot of the aggressions that we had before. Nevertheless, so we need to emphasize good things, but we need to probe. We need to offer opinions. We include the challenge referee in our discussions. We need to think about, well, how could you do that situation a little bit differently, and so on. But if we're doing it as an individual basis, and sometimes a referee will come to you and say, well, okay, I didn't do that right. Can I just sit and talk with you about this? Well, if you do that, then okay, try and find a place where you're focused entirely on the referee. Try and get no distractions. Try and decide on the topic to be explored and confirm that you're both taking the same issue and both talking the same issue, and there's no confusion between the two of you. And then once you've done that, you can think, well, if a solution, what was the problem? For example, referee comes and says, I'm really bad at figuring out when there's a backcourt attack coming. Okay, so you go to them and you have a discussion. You say, all right, what is your preferred solution? What was your ideal way out of this? Oh, I'd like to be able to spot it every time. I'd like to be able to know in advance how this occurred. Now, as a referee coach, obviously we're very specific. In normal situations, a coach doesn't need to know anything about the subject. This seems a bit crazy, but it's true. But a referee coach really does need to know that, because how are you going to probe the questions? But anyway, you try and get them to explain what the problem is, and then you say, well, okay, this you say you can't really do this. Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, where do you think you are on this particular pathway? Oh, well, maybe 5 out of 10. Okay, so what would you prefer to do? I'd like to get to 10 out of 10. Okay, so was there any time when you were better at this than you are now? Oh, yeah, okay, and they explain and so on. What were the conditions at that particular moment? Were you energetic? Were you enthused? Had you family problem? What was the situation? And you begin to tease out all sorts of different things, and then you go along the route of, well, okay, what would you need to create the same conditions that you were successful in before? And they begin to tease out those little aspects too. So step by step by step, with a long conversation, you'll actually begin to find out, well, this is where the problem lies, perhaps, but perhaps we see the beginning of a solution. And you begin to ask them questions like, well, what could you do to do this? What could you do to do that? Okay, what else could you do? And then they give you an answer. And then you say, well, what else could you do? You keep on asking what else, and you force them to actually make a decision, or force them to actually find a solution. Now, that may mean that you have to give them extra resources to do that. You may find that they need extra training. You need extra this. You need extra discussions. They need to have more time as second referee. Maybe they need to watch more videos. There may be a whole variety of different things they need to do in order to develop that particular skill of being ahead of the game, seeing where the backline attack is coming before it actually happens, and therefore being not surprised when it does happen, and then making a good decision when it does. And then once you have arrived at your various solutions, you then pick the ones that you're going to use, or that they are going to use, and then they go ahead and use them. But it means also they need to report back to you. They need to report back and say, well, this worked, that didn't work, and so on. And then if you've got that stage, then you go a little bit further and say, right, our next target is this. Now, it's important to appreciate that you don't do the jump from 5 out of 10 to 10 out of 10 in one jump. Okay, we don't really do that in life. So it's important to appreciate, or that they appreciate, you can do a little bit at a time. So jump from 5 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, and so on. But step by step by step, you approach the various levels of success, one little bit at a time. Okay. Now, I do remember also that the referee needs to remember that they can only control certain things. They can only control themselves, right? But we are the person that we can control. We can't control the players particularly. The players will do things, and we react to that. So we react to the players, but we can control ourselves, and that's important that we maintain that control. One of the things that the top level referees had prior to the Rio Olympics was they had a lot of time with a psychological coach. They were given lots and lots of advice on how to stay calm and control performance and so on. So that was important for them. So one of the things that I remember, a referee early on in a competition had a very bad match, very bad. And I spoke with them afterwards, and I said, what was the problem? And he said, well, actually, there was so much information at the clinic that was new to me that I got confused. It was rattling around in my head all the time, and I just couldn't keep it all in. It was, and so I was distracted. I said, well, okay, can you concentrate for 5 seconds? And he said, yes, I can do that. I said, well, okay, that's all you need to do. 5 seconds, relax. 5 seconds, relax. Because every rally is about 5 seconds. So you do that, and fair enough, the next time he did it, he concentrated for his 5 seconds at a time, and he was really good. He had lost that desire to constantly just to apply all the information he'd been given. So he became much more of a natural referee, and that was important. It's also important to remember not to force any concentration. So you could concentrate for the 5 seconds, but okay, if it's not coming, don't force it. Don't try and make it happen. Just relax a little bit more and enjoy the time. Okay, enjoy every rally as it comes. And once you enjoy it, that generates further confidence, better body language, better whistling, better decision making, and the players will enjoy it too. Okay, Roy, next one. So in summary, the process of self-evaluation is important, but you can support that with referee coaching. And then once you've done your referee coaching bit, you review what's been learned, you review what's been applied, and you can go ahead and you can do further things. Okay, so here we go. Process of evaluation. First of all, if you're doing it on your own, discussions, no distractions, one-on-one. Okay, move on. Next. To be effective, the coaching mentoring session really has to be focused on the person. No distractions, no phone calls, no knocking on the door, no, don't do it in the bar. That's perhaps not a good place to do it. Okay, next. All right. Now, as coaches, we need to be open to outside opinions, but so do the players, so do the referees. Referees need to be open to another opinion. Did you do it well? Not so sure. Okay. Did you do it right? Yes. Okay. So the person really must want to be helped, and that's important to know. No denial. Don't deny that you made a mistake. Don't deny that that could have been done better. There are alternative ways of doing things, and that's crucial to know. Okay, next. Don't be defensive. In other words, when you're told something is not working well, don't be defensive about it. Just keep on going. Next. Okay. You need to be outside criticism as well. Okay. Explore the issues, and then once you've done that, you're able to go forwards. You're able to make plans. Okay. Make targets. And then once you've made the targets, you apply those targets, and then you come back and you evaluate if those targets have been met. How far up the scale of 1 to 10 did you get this time? And so on. Okay. So really, I think we're nearly at the done. Yes, we're planning ahead, and then we're reviewing, and that's it. So once you set your targets, once you've decided on your methods, okay, set your targets, do the targets, and then report back and tell us it's all worked fantastically well. Okay, I'm done.
Well, fascinating, I have to say. I have to say that it was really, really interesting and fascinating. And I'd love to hear any questions or any comments from the people around that would like to find out some more information about that.
Okay.
Just unmute yourself, and you can, please, Tom, I see that you're already ready for that.
Of course. Sandy, that was a great presentation. I particularly appreciate your hints on how to be a good coach. in this situation, and the fact that it's important to have the referee draw out their own conclusions
Sure.
as to how they did and how to proceed. My specific question is what's the value of video for self-evaluation? I know that it's valuable. Is it being used?
It is being used, actually, and certainly at the FIVB level it's being used. I remember, and I'm paying tribute to Laszlo again. If Laszlo remembers when we were in Macau together, and we had all the referees there, and we spent a long time, every morning we actually spent a long time reviewing videos of the matches of those referees. I think Laszlo's nodding, I hope he is anyway. And it was fantastic that we did this. And I remember one of the referees came to us afterwards and said he learned so much from watching himself. He'd never seen himself before. And what we had said to him in words, he didn't quite get, but once he saw himself on the video, he realized that everything we had said was true. And so as a tool for referees to see a particular action, for example, it's wonderful. It's really great. From a point of view of a situational analysis, which I think maybe is the focus that Tom's question was, you can replay and you can replay and you can replay. And the situation that I described before about the tablet on the post and whether or not it was a legitimate service or not, that allowed me as a referee coach to analyze that fully, and I could see the thing popping up. I could see the reaction of the second referee to try and wave the players back. I can see the reaction of the referee not really understanding that this thing had gone off at the same moment, and I could see that the referee was trying to follow the rules as they were written, right? Whereas I was thinking more of how were the rules perceived by other people, and therefore how should we have sold any decision in a slightly different way that might have seemed fairer to other people. So that, to me, situational analysis is fantastic. And if you want to ask Tom or you want to ask Laszlo if they want to come in on that would be fantastic. Really good.
Please help if you want to add something, Laszlo.
Laszlo?
I say always that to evaluate alone a video, like situation evaluation, it's not the best solution, because maybe what is shown on the video, maybe it's wrong. So what can I say? A referee coach or a more experienced referee should help to evaluate the video. It's my opinion.
Yeah.
No, and that is the reason that with Roy we have arranged some videos, and then it was transferred to YouTube, uploaded to YouTube. There is a video, and at the end there is a more or less official explanation about this situation. So it can be very useful, very helpful for the referees who is watching this video. So that's what I emphasize, that a video alone is not enough. There should be a official, correct explanation about this.
Tom?
Yeah, I agree. I had the practice of setting up a camera focused on the referees only, not the match. And it would have the first and second referee and the attack zones at least in view. And then afterward, I would clip out specific instances where I thought it needed attention, and just show those to the referees and have them comment on that, together with the opinion of the referee coach. And I think that's where some real value is in the practice of evaluation.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with both of you actually, and I think this is where, for example, a PowerPoint, for example, like this, is only valuable enough if somebody can explain to you what it means. It's not always so easy to understand what is the thinking behind. But to go back a little bit more, when we do the casebook, for example, in FIVB, Laszlo has now added in videos to that casebook, and that makes it a whole lot more of an experience for the referees who are reading it, because they now understand what is the real situation. I could write something for my own federation, and half of them would see one picture and half of them would see a different picture. And both of them would be different from my picture in my head. So video actually makes it much clearer for everybody, and therefore it makes this consistency of understanding, and therefore helps the consistency of approach, I think. But it does need support, and that's where the referee coach or the mentor or the trainer or the instructor using that and actually explaining it more and more, and teasing out all those issues and extracting from the referee solutions themselves. I think that's the value of it.
So let me ask you, in Europe, some evaluations are made by watching the match and the referee's performance from TV broadcast. What is your opinion about this procedure? How can you evaluate the evaluation through a broadcast, a TV broadcast?
Well, I'll be honest, I've not had experience of actually doing that. I think from the point of view of when we try and do question of the month, and when we try and do video clips for the casebook, again, I'll go back to Laszlo, maybe you agree or not, an awful lot of time we have trouble getting those precise things that we need. It tends to be that we are able to see the problem issues, the challenge which occurred, and therefore the TV focuses on the challenge. It focuses on the referee going to look at the challenge. In Europe, obviously in FIVB you have a challenge referee, so it's not the same. But nevertheless, under those challenge situations, you do see the referee in action a little bit. Most of the time, it's difficult to actually get a good look at what the referee is doing. And you get a lot of disappointed wives saying, "I didn't see you on television," but that's unfortunately the reality of it. So you can see the action, you can perhaps see some of the issues, you can see the body language. You can't probably make a decision on was that a handling decision correct or not correct, and so on. Again, I go back to Laszlo, if I can bring Laszlo in, because Laszlo's experience of this may be much greater than mine. You want to add comment to that, Laszlo?
During the TV broadcast evaluation, we can get only the general impression about the refereeing. And if there was some delicate situation and it's shown by the TV, it's okay. I'm happy because maybe it can be cut and used. But the details cannot be judged. How the second referee handles the behavior of the players in the warming up area. So such small details cannot be determined by the TV, but the general impression can be okay. Mm-hmm. We can get this.
Yeah.
And if you allow me, if I get the floor.
No. Yes, of course. Of course, sorry, Laszlo, I was kidding.
So let me congratulate your presentation, because it was very exciting, and I'm 100% sure that it was useful for the referees. But I'm sure we agree that what you described about the refereeing coach, this is the ideal view. Am I right?
Probably.
This is our target, how the referee coach should behave.
Yes.
So let me hear your opinion about a situation when, after a single match, after a Champions League match, the referee observer went into the dressing room after the match. The match was not so difficult. The refereeing was pretty nice without big mistakes, etc. So there was no problem, no card, no warning, nothing. And the delegate went to the dressing room, and without any good word about the refereeing, he started immediately with the mistakes, listed a lot, what he saw on the spectator stand. 5 minutes he had a speech, and after that say goodbye, ciao. And he went out from the dressing room. What is your opinion? We are within 4 eyes, so you can tell me.
Well, it's not my style. I'll say that.
Fine.
No. I mean, I think every time I do it, and I'm sure you do it this way, and I'm sure Tom did it the same way. You go on and you ask opinions. You ask the referees. The referees have much more insight to what happened in the match than I ever could. They see more things than I can, and things that I'm not sure about. Okay, I will ask their opinion. I will ask, well, tell me what actually happened there. But always I ask them to say their piece first, because I think they're the most important people in that room at that particular time. How did they handle the situations? You know, and okay, out of the discussions can come a few mistakes for sure. You know, maybe that was maybe not handled well, that maybe was not handled well. But what I said early in the presentation, you make thousands of decisions every time a ball is touched, every time the ball hits the floor, every time a substitution is made. All the time, every time you look at a player, you're making a decision. Do I make eye contact with that player? Do I not? How do I cope with this discipline situation? You've got all of those decision-making processes happening in the match. And if at the end of the day, you've got 3 or 4 situations that maybe were not handled perfectly well, if they were not crucial to the match, then I think you need to focus on the good things and then say, look, you've got 3 things there. Maybe we could work on developing that. How do you think you handled that? Could you have done it a better way? You know, you can ask questions. If you ask the question, you get a better answer than if you instruct. People do, honestly, people do not like to be told what to do. We're in 2020, and people do not like to be told what to do. And if they are told what to do without understanding why they have to do it that way, then you don't get a good decision. But if you can tease out from them, well, this occurred, you know, what options do you have? What possibilities do you have of doing it a different way? Then you can get a better result at the end of the day. And you get, the referees are happy, and a happy bunch of referees are often a better bunch of referees. You know, they're not tense, they're not anxious. This is one of the things that we tried to get away from. We did have referee delegates in the past who would bang the table and say, yeah, etc. Okay, and I mean, I've been there. I had one referee delegate who tore me to shreds when I was an international referee, and I was literally torn apart. And I said at the end, I said, did I do anything right? And he said, I have much bigger list. So I really know where you're coming from. And those poor referees on that particular occasion, what did they learn? They learned nothing except that they went away and did they improve? Probably not. Did they do anything wrong? Probably not. But maybe their game was pretty average, and so let's raise their performance a little bit by focusing on what they can do. What would their preferred future be? No, referee better. Okay, what do you mean by referee better? Oh, I could have whistled that one. I could have called that one. I could have done something else. You know, you can take them to a higher level. Sorry, Laszlo, go.
One sentence more, and after that I finish. This is our, as commission, this is our task, our duty to transfer this idea to the continental commissions to teach on this way their refereeing coaches.
That's what I would like, certainly. Yeah.
It is a big duty.
I mean, it's been a long process,
Yeah.
but if you think about it, I know, going back to Tom, sorry, I'm not embarrassing you, Tom, but I know Tom would have done it that way as well. I know you do it that way. So we've actually been doing it that way for some time, but just not everybody has actually come on board that particular style. And I think it's important to allow the referees to be under less stress than they were before, you know. And I think it's good for them to actually enjoy their refereeing, because if they enjoy refereeing, then they'll referee better, and that enjoyment passes on to the players too, I think.
Let me ask you some technical question. I mean, eventually the referee coach must submit some kind of assessment of the coach, of the referee himself. I mean, to the
Yes.
commission.
Yes.
So he must change a hat and be more critical about, or give more detailed information, not so positive.
Yeah, we do. We are actually critical, but the report that we complete now has changed a little. We actually took on board some things from our colleague Pat Powers, about the way in which we report in the supplementary report, and it's a lot more positive. You give stars for the various aspects of the performance, you know, and the stars tend to be much more positive things than negative things. So, and then at the end we kind of rank the referees in the group, but it's not such a bad thing to be ranked number 3 in a group, you know. So
yeah, eventually there's no score for referees anymore. I mean,
yes, there is, but the referees don't see it. To be honest, we think it's fair, because what happened was, I mean, I think I told you last time I was in education for 42 years, and what we found was when we marked the test papers, you know, and we wrote many things on the test papers, but we wrote a score in the test papers, you know. So the children would look at the score and forget all the nice things we'd said. So it's important that the referees recognize the words are important, because they're meant to help. The score is not so important, you know. And a lot of the top referees, they shrugged their shoulders when we discussed in the past numbers. It doesn't really matter, you know. What's the difference between a 94 and a 92 or an 89? Not a lot of difference, really. So ignore the score. We have the scores, and our colleague collates all the numbers, etc. But it all evens out over the year.
So eventually, when you meet, you assess a referee, and you meet with him in the room, and you do have a lot of things to tell him, because maybe his performance was not so good, so poor performance, or he has some things that he must improve. How do you bring your criticism? And I'm using the word criticism because it is some kind of criticism. How do you bring it up forward to him, and still not give him some pressure on, or
It's meant to be non-judgmental, you know. It's non-directional, in the sense that you're really not saying what his mistakes are, or certainly not initially, but you're expecting him to tell you. So it's all to do with the manner of the questioning, and gradually it comes out. Now, another example, I said before that referees are often harder on themselves than the referee coaches are, or referee delegates are. And I remember I was in South America, and a referee, I can't remember which country he was from, but I only spoke English, and everybody else spoke Spanish or Portuguese, so it was difficult. And I had one of the Argentine referees could speak English, so he was my translator as well. So one of the referees from somewhere in north of South America, he had a pretty bad game. But anyway, afterwards we sat down as a small group, and we discussed. Okay, and in my usual way, I asked just the question, tell me about your match. Okay, and then in Spanish, he began. He began, and he went on, and he was stop, terrible. And I sat back in amazement, and this guy had actually basically destroyed himself in his own analysis of his performance without me saying anything at all. But the Argentine referee said to me at the end, "I've never seen anybody destroy a referee so badly in all my life." I said, "What? I didn't do anything. I only asked the question, how had he done? Or how had he thought he'd done?" But at the end, we actually went over some things that he could do to improve. And we focused on the positive things. We focused on the positive outcomes. You know, what was his preferred future? What was his preferred outcome from the position he was in? And he thought he'd never referee again in the competition. And immediately the next day I put him up as first referee again. And he was fantastic, you know? So the difference between supporting somebody, giving them confidence, and actually destroying them and removing them from the competition effectively, you know, you're losing a referee basically is what you're doing. I know which one I prefer. Sorry.
Sure, but if you meet some kind of referee, sometimes you can meet referees which are they have confidence in themselves. So how was your match? And you could know that the match was not good, and they say, yeah, it was perfect, and they would not. You would see on their body language that they're not accepting whatever you say or everything like that. How do you manage with these kind of referees?
I have the video. Let's look at this together. Right. Tell me about this particular incident. Tell me about that. I did have one like that, I remember. And I was actually with Dr. Holvey at the time, and it's one of those occasions when I was the referee delegate and Dr. Holvey was my assistant. Can you imagine that? Anyway, so anyway, we both sat there, and one of the referees he'd been particularly bad, and Holvey was basically clawing the table apart as we listened to this guy completely in denial of what he'd done. And one of the match involved the Japan team, and Japan are always very level. You know, never get upset. Well, the coach for Japan was furious. He was foaming at the mouth. So that shows the situation. And the guy he'd been whistling before the ball hit the player and so on, you know, all sorts of strange things. And, you know, he completely in denial, you know, and I said, look, I've got it on tape, you know, really, I have it here, and I will show you exactly what you were doing. And all of us around this table, we don't believe what you've just said, you know. So you have to accept that what we're seeing here is what you actually did. So sometimes you have to be a little bit more formal. You can't be good guy all the time, but nevertheless, you try and be as constructive as possible, because at the end of the day, he's a member of the team, or she's a member of the team, and you don't want to lose that team member. It could be critical in the final analysis that you need this referee at an important point in the competition.
I want to try to say something that, from my understanding, from all this presentation that you just had and what we were talking just now, there's a lot of psychology that referees must understand or use, or even work on skills, psychology skills, almost like a kindergarten teacher when you have two fightings, or to be very delicate with some kinds of situations. How do you see the psychology work that the referee has to do? Because in this presentation, you're touching the psychology, but not talking. You don't say the word exactly psychology.
No, we're not dealing with psychology. I mean, I'm not a psychologist, absolutely not. And prior to Rio, we actually employed a psychologist to actually support the referees and the work that he did was very valuable indeed. And so I don't even consider I scratched the surface of any of that kind of stuff. But this is about being a coach, and coaches do have to understand a little bit about psychology. We talked about people skills before, and I suppose your people skills are really about listening, and the referees really are the ones who are actually doing their own psychoanalysis. I mean, I'm not looking into their head. I don't know what kind of issues that they had with their family. I don't know what kind of phone calls they had from home. That the daughter was sick, overnight, and is the referee worried about that? You don't go into those sort of things at all. But I mean, there is an element where we're all psychologists, in the same way that we're all politicians as well. We know how to skirt around some dangerous issues, and we know how to be empathetic.
Mm-hmm.
We understand what's going on the court. We understand some of what's going on in the players' minds or the referee's mind, and so on. So, it's a tough question. I'm going to bail on that one because I really am not a psychologist, and I only know what I know because of this, and I've tried it, and I've actually, I've had seminar sessions in our own federation to, talk about other parts of coaching, not playing coaching, but just coaching in general, sort of life coaching and so on. And really, that's what it is. It's a kind of life coaching rather than specific to volleyball.
Well, I think also as a referee, when you think then you understand the psychology of the coaches or the players, and you can realize the tension that it grows before it ignites, and then you have to start with cards and everything.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I was going to say it's back to what we said before about a natural referee as opposed to a manufactured referee. A manufactured referee will be told, you do this, you do that, and so on, and you'll be okay. A natural referee will do it because that's the natural way to do it. Their people skills, their empathy, their knowledge of behavior, etc., all rolled up into one package allows them to control a match, or to direct a match, or to orchestrate a match in a way that's going to get the best out of everybody.
okay, I think we covered all parts.
I think so.
For this session.
If I may,
please.
if I may, one small comment. This natural and manufactured goes for the referee coaches as well, isn't it?
Yes, right. So, yeah. But fortunately, from our side, and this is a little bit defensive, all the referee coaches that Willie Paredes has put together are former international referees, so they have an experience of that at a fairly high level. Some of them actually refereed Olympic finals and so on. But yes, you're right. It can be that a person becomes a referee coach without operating at a high level. So, but yes, I take your point. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions before we finish this kind of time of meeting? Most of them are still up. Yeah. So, Sandy, thank you very much, very much for this very informative and interesting presentation. Looking forward for the next one. We're going to work on the next one.
Okay.
And we'll keep everybody in tension and some kind of tension and waiting for the other presentation to come about. Thank you very much all for being with us. Stay safe and